Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are diving into something that every single one of us deals with, and that's finding the sweet spot between ego and humility. It's this delicate balancing act that, honestly, when you get it right, it can completely change your life for the better. All right, let's get into it.
So let me just ask you this straight up. Is ego a dirty word? I mean, think about it for a second. When you hear that word, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably arrogance, right? Or selfishness? We're kind of taught that it's this bad thing we need to get rid of. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if that's only half the story?
So to really get to the bottom of this, we first have to understand what the ego even is. It's such a core part of our psychology. So let's spend a little time redefining this essential and, often really misunderstood part of who we all are.
Okay, so at its most basic level, the ego is just our sense of I. It's that voice in your head, the narrator that helps you figure out the world and your place in it. It isn't good or bad on its own, it's just a tool. A necessary tool we use for survival and just, getting through the day.
And think about what this tool actually does for us. A healthy ego is what gives us self-confidence. It's what helps us protect ourselves and set boundaries. It shapes our identity so we know who we are in a group. And it's the engine for our motivation, the thing that makes us want to chase our goals. We literally couldn't function without it.
I love this analogy because it's just perfect. The ego is this incredibly powerful force, and when it's under control, when it's in balance, it's like a cozy fire in a fireplace. It gives you warmth, energy, and light. But when it rages out of control, it becomes destructive and can burn the whole house down. It's all about moderation.
So what does happen when that fire gets out of control? When this tool that's supposed to serve us ends up becoming our master? Well, this is where things get really tricky. This is where we run into problems.
And you can see the difference so clearly right here. That healthy confidence, it gets twisted into narcissism. That natural instinct to protect yourself, it turns into this prickly, constant defensiveness. Being your authentic self gets replaced with this fake, grandiose image you have to maintain. And where a healthy ego helps you connect with people and grow, an inflated ego, it just leads to isolation and stagnation.
So what should you be looking out for, in day-to-day life? Well, it's things like always needing people to tell you you're great. We're getting super angry at even the smallest piece of criticism. It's viewing everyone around you as a rival instead of a collaborator. It's that inability to just be vulnerable and admit you don't have all the answers. An inflated ego literally shuts you off from the feedback you need to get better.
Okay, so if an out-of-control ego is the problem, then what's the solution? Well, it's not about destroying your ego. It's about balancing it. And the perfect counterbalance is something we often overlook, the quiet and honestly incredibly underestimated power of humility.
This quote from C.S. Lewis, wow. It might be the best definition of humility there is. See, true humility isn't about beating yourself up or thinking you're worthless. Not at all. It's simply about shifting your focus off of yourself. It's an outward-looking strength.
When you break it down, humility is really about being honest with yourself and with others. It's having the guts to say, you know what, I don't know. It's having the wisdom to actually listen to what other people think. It's about seeing yourself clearly, warts and all, and having that burning curiosity to just keep on learning.
And that brings us right to the heart of it all. Ego and humility. They aren't enemies fighting a war inside you. They're more like partners in a dance. The goal isn't for one to win and the other to lose. The goal is for them to find a beautiful, perfect harmony.
And to really get a handle on this partnership, let's use a metaphor. Let's think about a tree. We'll call it the tree of self. I think this really helps capture the relationship we're talking about.
So picture this. Your ego is the trunk of the tree. It's strong, it's what everyone sees, and it reaches for the sun. It gives you your structure and your presence in the world. But the roots, that's your humility. You can't see them, but they're digging deep into the earth, grounding you, feeding you, and keeping you from getting knocked over when a big storm hits. A tree has to have both to be healthy.
And when you find that balance, man, the results are just incredible. Your confidence is real, it's authentic, not fragile. When you fail, you bounce back way easier. You can connect with people on a much deeper level, and your actions start coming from a place of real purpose, not just from a need to be praised. This one shift can change everything, from your work to your family life.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. Now, let's get to the most important part, the how. How do we actually do this? How do we work on this balance in our real, busy lives? Let's look at a few super practical tools.
The first step, and you can't skip this one, is mindfulness. And that just means learning to pay attention to what's going on in your head without judging it. You start to notice those little moments.
that flash of anger when someone gives you feedback, or that craving for a pat on the back after you do something well. Just catching the ego in the act, that's the first huge step to managing it. Next up, practice gratitude. The ego is always hungry. It's always focused on what it doesn't have or what it thinks it deserves. Gratitude is the perfect antidote to that. When you consciously focus on what you do have, your health, a great friend, even just a good cup of coffee, you basically starve that entitled part of your ego and feed your humility instead.
And finally, find ways to be of service. It's so simple, but it works. When you're actively helping someone else, you physically and mentally shift the spotlight off of yourself. That constant me story that the ego loves to tell just gets quiet when you're focused on what someone else needs, even if it's just in a really small way.
You see what all these practices have in common? They break the ego's spell. They force our focus to go outward. They remind us that we're all connected, that our wins are never just ours alone, and that, we're just one small part of a much, much bigger universe.
So, we'll leave you with this thought. Life needs both. The ego is what drives us to stand tall, to reach for things, to achieve. But humility is what gives us the grace to connect, to learn, and to remember we're all in this together. So the real question is, are you taking care of both your trunk and your roots?